Despite the fact that it's freezing outside, and also the fact that the ground is frozen, we're going to be planting a few new seeds tonight. I'm following the concept that I started last week when we were taping the show for the Metro Crops folks, Steve Domian and Daphne Dixon, and the fact that we're planting new seeds for the new year, 2013. So this show is a rather continuation of that concept. My guest here today on Carousel is going to help me do that, and she's from Fairfield County, so it's even more not only so much a local idea, but a global idea. My name is Scott Albertson. Welcome back to Carousel. I'm your host, and I welcome to Carousel for the first time as a guest, Debra Mahony.
Thank you for having me, Scott.
Thank you. Thank you for being here, and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you.
Now, Debra is not only the fact that she lives in the Fairfield County area because she's our neighbor, so to speak, but also she is an advocate, and a staunch one at that, for many different environmental organizations, and certainly not just locally, but certainly have a local impact. So I asked Debra to be with us today. We're going to plant the seeds for two particular organizations that she works with, and I actually worked with Debra on one of them. So the first one is Save the Frogs. Now, Save the Frogs has a website called SaveTheFrogs.com, and Debra actually gave me some material when I did a show in October of 2012. We'll talk about that. So welcome to Carousel.
Thank you.
And why don't you give us a little preview or overview of Save the Frogs, please?
Well, Save the Frogs is an organization. It's a relatively new organization started by Dr. Kerry Kreger. He is now worldwide, but it's the only site that focuses entirely on amphibian and frog, yes, on saving frogs.
Yes.
We've lost over 200 species of frogs to extinction since 1967, I think it is, and 2,000 more aren't going to make the 21st century if we don't do several things. And there are things that people can do that people need to insist be done, and they're like getting rid of pesticides, of course.
Sure.
Everyone's probably heard the problems with, the runoff when there's rains, and then, the algae blooms. That's, all related to pesticides that we're using that we shouldn't be using, and we're using way too much of them. In particular,
sure.
the big thing that Dr. Krieger is working on is getting rid of atrazine, banning atrazine. We import in the U.S. Last year we imported 80 million pounds of it.
Wow.
And it's sprayed primarily in the Midwest on the corn, and it's on the sugar, the sorghum, they put it on cotton, so people are wearing it. They even put it on Christmas trees, so some people are even bringing it into their house. Who thinks you need to buy an organic Christmas tree?
And we've also talked about this off camera. It could be phrased as like the DDT of the 2000s.
Well, it was supposedly the safe replacement for DDT.
DDT, right.
But we now know, not in any stretch of the imagination. And that's, in fact, it was completely banned in the entire EU. They banned it in 2004 because it was prominent in their groundwater, as it is still in ours.
Sure.
They banned it in 2004, and the good news is their air is getting cleaner and their water is getting cleaner, and we're still using it.
Still mucking up the mix.
It's made by a company in Switzerland.
I see.
And it's never been approved there for use for a single day, but they sell it to us in third world countries.
This poster is one of the posters that Debra and other folks that are involved, volunteer-wise,
just volunteers,
for
yes.
Save the Frogs.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, beyond the fact that SaveTheFrogs.com, which is the website, you can also find them on Facebook because I'm friends with Kerry on Save the Frogs. And there's daily postings about Kerry and all the different avenues and tangents that he's involved with the organization, and it truly is global. I mean, he has postings about India, he has postings about Europe, and he has postings of this and that. So it truly is, started out planting a seed, started out California,
exactly,
and now it's all around the world.
Yes,
and it's all for the passion of these amphibians.
He just started Save the Frog Belize, and In fact, they have their first eco trip that they're
Yeah, isn't
inviting
that something?
frog lovers to go to. So
that
yeah, it's very
something?
important because, as I said, it's used in third world countries as well as our country.
As well
So
as the United States.
it
yeah.
is worldwide that, it's all about information, and the site that he has is so educational, and it's really geared towards children. I've handed out many a card to a child and asked them to tell their teacher, tell their principal, and
Sure.
it's good. And it's good it's because kids can feel that they can do something, whether it's start
Sure.
a frog pond or just educate their parents about that pesticide they're thinking about putting down in the spring.
Absolutely, and that's the time to get them when they're
Yes.
young, because you can plant the seeds. It gives them a longer period to grow, so to speak, and it's like computers. When we were kids, computers were thought of IBM and some big monster, and now every kid's got them in second grade, and they've got the little hand doodad, the BlackBerry, and all that. So that's normal to them because they're growing up with it, and this is the same idea that if you plant these seeds now, it gives a long period of time, and they grow with it. So it's not
Absolutely.
like you're trying to convince an adult who has their mannerisms and has their characteristics and habits to change it up. So when Deborah goes out, and I say we because I had the occasion to be involved in Daphne Dixon's Green Market Exposition in Bridgeport in October of 2012, she brings posters such as this, and of course, Deborah found this in a tag sale, I think you told me.
Yes.
You thought it was so cute, it's a good little mascot. So we brought this little guy here, and she has T-shirts, she got hats, she got information cards, and it's all about getting the information out. It's all about spreading the word. So you can find it not so much on the website itself, but again, I'm reiterating it only because it's so important, and it's also a topic that's close to my heart because I love frogs. They're so sweet. They really are. And they're kind of the frontline defense of bugs, insects.
Well, they are, absolutely. And they have permeable skin, so they're the first to feel the effect of pollution.
Sure.
And, they're the proverbial canary in the coal mine. I mean, the fact that they're dying off, like, 200 species have gone extinct. They were here during the dinosaur age. I mean, there's this, that's really scary, and that should be our wake-up call. That should be our wake-up call to do what we can to get them back, because we need them. They're disease vectors. They eat ticks and mosquitoes, the two things that we don't want an abundance of.
Sure.
So,
It's very much what, again, we were talking about off camera, is that we were talking about how one particular animal or amphibian or insect, if there's an overabundance of them, or if a natural predator is decimated or hunted upon, for example, then it skews the balance. So when it skews the balance, then, like you say, you have an overabundance, for example, of mosquitoes, and then of course then
Right.
you have the virus, the mosquito virus and all that kind of gets crazy, and then people get sick by that, and so it truly is all connected. And how Deborah and I, because it is all life, meaning is all connected, how we met was through Daphne
Right.
Dixon, and through the Live Green event that was or is in Norwalk, and there'll be the 4th annual one coming up this year in 2013. But that's how we met, because
Right.
Daphne.
Yep, it's all good work.
It's all good work.
And the biological diversity is very, very important. I mean, the whole, you can't, it's like when people bring, an invasive species in, it
Right.
offsets the balance. It's very important. We need frogs, we need bats, we need all those things. We need our bumblebees back. I mean,
Sure.
that's another thing. Europe banned the clothidium, that herbicide that's killing the bumblebees, and our EPA, still hasn't done that. People need to make sure that those things get done.
Part of the problem too, there was an article I read about a year and a half ago with frogs in Colorado in very high elevations, obviously because Colorado's way up. And there was a particular species of frog, and I don't remember the name of it, but they were finding that they were dwindling with no explanation as to why. Meaning they would go to a certain area where this certain species of frog was or is, and over a period of a couple of years, and then they would come back the following year and there was less, and they would come back the following year and there was even more less, so to speak. And part of that, I believe, and it was hinted in the article I was reading is that ozone, because we're having an ozone depletion problem because of all the gases that, and again,
Right.
because it's skewed. You know, we've got so much carbon dioxide now in our environment that's going up, and it's creating holes and
it's getting
different
warmer.
gases. Right.
That's
So,
the
well,
first
it's
thing I
also
thought,
the
yeah.
sun.
Right.
You know, the sun rays are now coming in, and I think as well that's a reason why we're having so much of a skin cancer problem,
Oh, sure.
because now the ozone is off balance. You know, it gets skewed because now we're dumping all this gas into the environment, into the atmosphere, and now it's lessening the ozone layer. So you're getting all these ultraviolet rays that are coming in, and now you're having this problem with people with skin cancer.
Yeah.
And it's, I mean, it's a
Definitely.
fact that sun is stronger. I mean, there's like no question about
No,
that.
absolutely it is. It
So that
definitely
has
is.
an effect on these guys.
Yeah, it's all so important. I mean, we just, and also the pesticides, you know, that are, they're not necessarily killing the frogs. What they do is, like atrazine in particular, it's an endocrine disruptor, and what it does is it causes male frogs to turn into like female frogs,
Really?
and the reproductive, you know, status obviously doesn't work that well anymore. So it's not good.
It's
It's
skewed.
definitely not good, and we have half the DNA that frogs have. So you know, it affects humans too.
Sure.
I mean, there have been studies on it that it's directly related to an increase in prostate cancer and breast cancer, and you know, it's just not good. We just don't need it, and this. Not just atrazine, although atrazine is the one that's most predominant with the 80 million pounds a year. There's other herbicides and pesticides, but we just don't need it, and it puts organic farmers right out of business.
Sure.
So we just, you know, we need that's certainly not good. We need to just get back to organic farming everywhere, just like, you know,
Right, and
good
that,
old days.
and that connects to the fact of Metro Crops, which is the show that's being, the interview that's being aired this week, is the fact that it's going to offer people jobs.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be in an old abandoned building that is now just sitting there falling apart, so it gets a renewed life. And it's grown inside, so now you don't have to utilize ground on the outside. You don't have to take up space, acreage. You can use space that's already there, and it's just falling apart, it's deteriorating, and now it'll give it that whole different life, and it'll change it up.
Wonderful.
I mean, it's such a terrific idea.
It is.
And the fact that now, with that concept for the lettuce, for the Metro Crop lettuce, and we're only using that as one example, but then they could use that for other vegetables as well.
Oh, that's great.
So it's a win-win-win-win-win kind of all the way around. So you've got jobs, you're utilizing old buildings that are sitting there just not doing anything, and you're giving jobs. And it's hydroponics, so there's no soil. So that cuts down on the waste and the whole deal. You know, it's just,
Brilliant.
yeah, and we need to keep doing ideas like that. And it's to bounce off your idea and your comment, is most people think more on a larger scale, but it doesn't have to be on a larger scale. It could be as simple as walking down the street. I do this when I'm in New York, because I'm in New York most of the time, performing and all that. And I carry a little old prescription bottle that's like about yay big and about yay big around. And what I do is I'm walking down the street, I find a lot of times, probably like 2 or 3 every time I'm walking around the city, because I walk all the time, I find Duracell or similar batteries that are laying on the street. People probably use them in cameras, and then they die, they run out of gas, and then they just eject them right on the street, or they go in the garbage, and because the garbage cans are perforated, they fall out into the street. So what I do is I take them, put them in the container, put it in my backpack, and then when I come home to Norwalk, I take it down to the recycling center in Norwalk and then throw them because they recycle them.
Good for you.
Well, but it's the
People
whole
don't. A lot of people don't even know that
Right.
still that you shouldn't put those in the trash.
Right, exactly.
They're
Because it's
hazardous waste.
yeah,
of
because
course.
it's alkaline, and if you leave it on the street, for example, then it starts to leach into when you have rainwater or snow melt. Then that goes down the drain and ends up going out to the Long Island Sound or Atlantic Ocean or whatever the case may be, and it just festers that whole problem. So, and they get recycled.
It's great.
But that's also for bottles, for cans, plastics, anything like that. It's so simple. You can do it that basic. It doesn't have to be like, oh, I got to give $100 to so-and-so to help them with the cause, which is fine. I'm not dismissing that, but it's more the idea, it can very, very simple aspects that can change that whole balance of what's happening. I'm going to change this poster because it gives a different message for Save the Frogs. And we're going to talk now about, okay, Herman, stay right there. We're going to talk now about the other organization that Debra is involved with. She's involved with many, by the way. She's not just involved with Save the Frogs and the second one, but many. And the second one is the Center for Biological Diversity.
Diversity, yes.
Now, very interesting, and it goes back to the top of the show when I said planting seeds. Mm-hmm. Here's three fellows, and by the way, it's centerbiologicaldiversity.org is the website.
Centerforbiologicaldiversity.org.
.org, right. And they also have a Facebook
They do.
page.
They do.
So you can friend them on Facebook to get information. But planting seeds, here's three fellas, Kieran, Peter, and Todd.
Yeah.
Three fellows that started, they came together and they were working for the U.S. Forest Service out in New Mexico in the Gila Forest. Mm. And they were looking for Mexican spotted owls, I guess, which were rare. And that's how they all came together. And from that point, and it was a large tree, an old tree that
they were out there hooting
yeah.
in the middle of the night trying to find the owls, to locate the owls, so that they wouldn't be able to cut down the
forest, part of that forest.
Redwoods, yeah. They were protecting the woods through the endangered species. Center for Biological Diversity is, it focuses on upholding and strengthening the Endangered Species Act, Clean Air Act, and Clean Water Act. Okay. So just within those three things, within those three items, the parameters are very large because they're protecting streams, they're protecting, I mean, they're basically in the United States and the oceans. So they're not worldwide like Save the Frogs, but they are so effective. They're very, very grassroots. You won't find any gift bags or stuffed animals on their site. They have the same style t-shirt I think they had 25 years ago when they started, and that's about it. But all their energy goes back into litigation to uphold and strengthen, as I said, the Endangered Species, the Clean Air, and the Clean Water Act.
Isn't that something?
They have a wonderful campaign that they just started this year because they're trying to gut the Clean Air Act, as well as they being some of our government. They're trying to gut the Clean Air Act, Clean Water Act, and the Endangered Species Act. They're trying to strengthen all three. Okay. And the Clean Air Act, they started a Clean Cities campaign. Okay. So what they're asking is everyone in every city to go to their elected official and ask them to pass
the legislation.
Legislation,
right.
Sorry, I couldn't think of the word. Legislation to enforce the Clean Air Act. Because if we just enforce the Clean Air Act, we would be able to clean up this at least our country.
Sure.
I mean, dramatically. Just enforce it. Same with the Endangered Species Act. It's really just all about enforcing the laws that are already there. Sure. And with the Clean Water Act as well. Just enforcing what we have. And so anyway, the Clean Cities campaign, if everyone could, go to check out the site and ask their elected officials to just enforce it, just pass that legislation to enforce the clean air standards.
Now, while Debra's talking, I brought a couple of photos with me, and I want you to keep on talking. Mm-hmm. I want to keep this tangent because it's very interesting. I brought 3 photos with me that are enlargements of underwater shots that I've taken over the years. Mm-hmm. Now, these are 3 shots from Hawaii, and this is the first shot. So they're going to zoom in on the photo, on the enlargement while we're talking. So let's just keep on talking. But
okay.
This incorporates into the Center of Biological Diversity about talking about clean water.
Absolutely. Well, one of the Clean Water Act is, and the Endangered Species Act is going to play a big part also, and they're going to be focusing big time on the big garbage dump that's coming our way, that's floating out in the ocean.
Japan.
That's going to be
from the Japanese earthquake and tsunami.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's going to be their new Superfund thing that they're going to be working on, that they're going to be focusing on one of many things, but they are, very, very, very active in protecting marine as well as, species in the United States.
Okay. And this particular photo, by the way, is of a crab. This is a hermit crab that was taken in Hawaii and was actually, it's very, how would I want to say, it's very appropriate because you're talking about that huge mass of garbage that's floating across the Pacific now, going from east to west, from west to east, and it's like the size of, supposedly like the size of Texas or something like that. It's huge.
Scary.
Yeah, it's huge. It's this massive plastic and tires and you name it. But this particular little guy is a hermit crab that I took at night, and he has beautiful green eyes. And so this is part of what you're talking about. You start putting a lot of stuff it's going to affect
Of course.
his or her home. This
course.
little guy. And he was so cute when I was taking the photo. He just set right up for me when I came down. It was a night dive. And I just came right up to him, took my time, and just took the shot, and he just perched there, and I was like, okay, perfect. But it's really the idea that it is also connected.
Absolutely. I mean, I have a picture that I saw on, I think it might even have been on Center for Biological Diversity. It was of a sea turtle with a piece of plastic coming out of its mouth. I mean, it's just, that's another thing that this country does not need anymore. I think we should be, if everyone doesn't know by now to bring their own bag when they go shopping.
Yeah, I'm going to switch photos here. The interesting part about, you're talking about the sea turtle, one of the real devils, I guess, if you will, of plastic are the 6-packs rings that you do, like 6 packs of soda.
Absolutely.
And
Right.
I've seen photos of where either turtles or seabirds, they actually have it around their neck and they
Right.
can't get it off. And what ends up happening, I've seen with pictures from sea otters, and what ends up happening is it ends up choking them. And it doesn't choke them to the extent that they die right away, that it cuts off their air supply, but what it does is they can't eat.
Can't eat.
And they slowly starve to death, which is just awful. I mean, imagine a person being like that. There would be a hue and cry if you heard somebody like, oh my God. But can you imagine doing that to an animal? Poor thing has no choice.
No. They're often plastic bags. They're often mistaken. I'm sure you've heard from jellyfish.
Jellyfish,
They think that
yeah.
they're jellyfish and they'll eat them
Yeah,
out.
and turtles, same thing.
Yeah.
They eat the jellyfish, and then what ends up happening is it gets into their digestive system, it creates a block, and then obviously not only cannot they eat, but it becomes a huge mass, and again, the same principle applies. It becomes infected,
them.
a virus, and then they die.
It kills
It's so
them, yeah.
sad. This particular photo, by the way, is of a rock crab that I took at night in Hawaii, and it's so beautiful because the reds. See, most people don't understand the vibrant colors of the underwater. They're vibrant, like this red, blues and greens and yellows. Not so much around here, because I dive out in Long Island Sound as well, but they're so vibrant. It's so beautiful. And when you go underwater, you don't normally see this unless you have an artificial light. Like I bring down an underwater strobe, and that's what can light up, and you can actually then see the colors like this. But let's just kind of keep on where we're going with that. Go
The
ahead.
center was actually very instrumental in getting, I can't remember, I think it was like 43 species or something like that in Hawaii, put on the endangered species list.
Sure.
I think it's Obama's, Hawaii tends to be near and dear to his heart.
Yes, I
That
wonder
probably
why.
had a little bit of
I wonder why,
influence
yeah.
on it. But
Exactly.
we need to do that same protection, all over, not.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to switch photos again, not that I want to push through here, but we're getting down to the end of the interview. And this is the last one that I wanted to show. Now this is of,
Wonderful.
this is of an octopus that I took at night. And it was fun because when I was diving, there was a captain of the boat was with me. And octopus, or octopi, are extremely smart critters. People don't realize how smart they are and how inquisitive and intelligent. And they actually, what happens when you're diving, if you get one to stay put for a few minutes, because their natural instinct is to take off, is they actually will start crawling up your arm. I've had them actually crawl up my arm, crawl over my head, go around all the dive equipment, and then crawl out and then take off. It's really neat. But this is of an octopus that we shot at night, and with the
That's
dive captain, he held it
spectacular.
for me. But we're getting down to the end of it. I told you, 28 minutes goes by like that. We're going to have you back again because there's other organizations that we can talk about. But 2013, New Year, I wanted to start planting some new seeds and have you
Good.
on because it was a joy to meet you and a joy to now know you and have you as a friend, and also to turn me on to Save the Frogs, because I just think it's such a wonderful organization.
And Center for Biological Diversity.
Center for Biological
Near and
Diversity.
dear to my heart.
Yes, exactly. And as well, Debra is on Facebook, and you can friend her on Facebook because she does a lot of postings about environmental and ecological legislation and events that are going on.
That's pretty much all I do.
Yes, exactly, exactly.
My entire Facebook is in environmental issues.
Yes, and also Daphne, we had talked about this last time, Daphne is going to be having her monthly green drink in Fairfield. And the next one will be February 5th, and that's in Fairfield, and it's from, I believe, 5:30 to 8:30 or something like that. If you friend Daphne, and that's Daphne Dixon, Dixon, and she posts it, and we'll keep you posted. But that's free, and you can come out. It's at the Shack on Route 1.
That's wonderful.
And it's really neat because she has different organizations. Go ahead.
And you just meet a lot of nice people that have, similar passions.
Sure, sure. And that's part of the idea, as we've talked about many times in this interview, that it is all connected.
It is.
It's not only connected locally, but it's also connected globally. And that represents what we do also in technology nowadays, because all of this technology, with all the Blackberries and the Raspberries and the whole deal, the globe has become so small.
Yeah, really.
I mean, something happens in China, and we know it in less than a minute, because it's either tweeted or it's on Facebook or it's on CNN or whatever the case may be, or anything that happens, unfortunately, like a oil tanker gets sunk or something of that sort, and you have a spill. I mean, we know it right away now, which in and of itself is not bad, because then obviously the response can be quicker. We can
Good
get
old
help out.
petitions online.
Yes, exactly.
Very effective.
Yes, exactly. And Debra just brought up a really neat point before we close out the interview. There are many petitions online now, and that's part of the wonder of technology, where you can sign these petitions or like them, so to speak. And what that does is it goes to the legislative body.
Whoever, the EPA or President Obama, whoever, National Wildlife Service.
Sure.
Yeah, they can be very, very effective.
Very, very effective.
But people have to sign them.
Right.
And hopefully forward them.
Yes.
Forward them to their contacts.
Right. But that's also the idea about all the postings that you do.
Yes.
Because it helps getting the word out. And
Absolutely.
even a single voice, such as yours, and you friend it and like it, now becomes the collective voice.
Hopefully, right?
Yes, hopefully. So thank you so much, Debra, for being here with us.
Thank you so much, Scott.
And thank you for joining us again on Carousel. And Happy New Year once again, and please come back and join us. Thank you.